Cause I'm in prison for a crime that I didn't commit. I'm representing for all the ones that been through this shit. Cause if it lately, man, it seems that I'm paying a price. And y'all know I'm tired of being a sacrifice.
My name is Leon Benson, and I'm 47 years old, and I just came home after being wrongfully incarcerated for 25 years. Definitely, being trapped in the system is much like being trapped in the hood, because they both are state of minds. It make me think about a Bible verse. Hebrews 13:3. Remember those in prison as if you are their fellow prisoners. And what I liken that to is a mentality. So I got to remember those in the prison of the hood mentality, of, the prison mentality. But with me being trapped within the system, it made me realize that it was hard. It was times, coming in at the age of 22, former drug dealer, but having this case of a crime that you didn't commit, the murder of, a middle class, white dude. And at the time in 98, when this crime happened, it was rare. A lot of people don't know that cross-race crime is very rare. Usually it's white on white, black on black, brown on brown. And it's rare to have a cross-racial crime. And so, that crime happened. It was basically the privilege against the poor urban community. Everybody involved in the trial, they were people from the streets, people who had records. And, the state's only eyewitness being a Caucasian woman who said she seen somebody commit a crime from 50 yards away at night with her headlights, claiming her headlights was illuminating. But the irony of it is, she said she seen a dark-skinned male who was 5'8". I'm 5'10", and I'm not dark-skinned. And in trial, she even said I was light-skinned. They said, "Ma'am, could you tell us the color of the defendant?" She said, "He's light-skinned, right?" I was like, wow. And to add insult to injury, she had Coke bottle glasses, right? Like, I couldn't make this up, right? I'm like, man, so, my first trial ended in a hung jury. 7 not guilty, 5 for guilty. So I thought my second trial would really, vindicate me. But it didn't. It was much worse than the first trial because I was found guilty of murder. So I go to prison. I'm sentenced to 60 years. My family devastated. I'm devastated. I can't believe it. I'm in shock. Some people know of the delusion of reprieve, right? So this is a term I learned later on of my behavior. So the delusion of reprieve, usually it happen to people that's finna get a death sentence. And they like, man, they're gonna stop this at any time. They're gonna stop this and they just gonna let me go. They're gonna let me go. They ain't gonna kill me. Well, mine wasn't as extreme, but extreme in its own way, because it was, man, they gonna let me go. They gonna come get me. And for a while, I used to sleep in my coat. I said, man, because I'm finna go home. Y'all are tripping, right? But that never came. It's a real, sometimes, as men, we get confronted with situations that overwhelm us. I was overwhelmed. At first I was playing these little penny ante games, with the system, trying to be arrogant and cute. You see what I'm saying? But once you really know you own that van, you there, and the door is shut, boom. I'm like, man, I'm like really stuck. Like, this is for real. Like, wait, am I really here? So it's like a shocking feeling. You see your whole life flash before your face. Before your face, your whole life flash. You think about time. But when you 22 years old, you don't have a real conception of time. 10 years look like a lifetime to you. They gave me 60. I was like, man, and I had to deal with it. It was shocking. It was horrifying. As soon as I came through the door, though, I immediately was working on my case. I think I even sent my first letter to the Indiana Innocence Project as early as 2001 when they opened, right? I was on the ball, doing that. I had a lawyer coming into prison that me and my family hired. And this lawyer, Richard Kiefer was his name. He did a wonderful job on my appeal, in retrospect, when I started to understand the law. And I put in a lot of hope with him. My first appeal was in for a long time, longer than average. It was just like 2 years, right? And usually when a direct appeal is in that long, you're going to get some play. It was a lot of hope start to develop. And plus I was innocent, but something happened in the midst of that. I got misidentified in a prison riot. And I was placed on solitary confinement. And I would be there for the next decade, right? I'm not knowing that, but I'm passing through this particular journey, and I passed into a very, very rough patch. The make or break moment. I go to solitary, and I'm locked in 2001 in November. I go in, and I'm like, I shouldn't even be in prison, but I'm in solitary. Y'all playing. Somebody lied on me, said I participated in a riot. They got confidential informants in prison. Somebody lied. Somebody was trying to get moved somewhere, probably used me. But the thing about this moment was, this is my first time in solitary confinement, my first time in prison, wrongfully incarcerated, wrongfully in solitary confinement. And somebody raped my sister. And I couldn't do nothing about it. I was like, oh man, this is December. January came, my stepfather died. I'm like, man. Same month, my grandfather died. I didn't want to see the chaplain no more. When I seen the chaplain, I was like, oh man, there's somebody else dead. To add, man, more gas to the flames. That February, my direct appeal was denied. And it gets even worse. My kid's mother, although I respect that she was able to hold my kids down while I was gone, and I know it's hard being a single mother, or a woman for that matter, raising 2 kids, 3 for that matter. But the money that we were supposed to be saving up, she didn't have nothing. I couldn't believe it. It should have been at least $100K. I had nothing. So at that point, man, I was at my low. I was on the floor. I was broken into a million pieces, right? I was getting return to sender on my mail. I had to figure it out. Let me try to figure out this law. But in that time, man, a big part of me died. Thinking, can never return. I mourned money. I mourned it, right? I was like, oh man, money got to die, money, right? Because I knew I needed it so much, but I mourned it. It was the death of money for me. And when I emerged out of this dark cloud of my imprisonment, which the make or break moment, I always say, when I emerged out of there, I started to accept my circumstances, not my situation. It's important that we accept our circumstances. Circumstances would be if somebody hit you, blindside you and hit you in the eye. The circumstance is you have a black eye. You need to attend to your black eye before you get your leg back. That's circumstances. The situation is this dude or whoever hit you, and that's not correct. So the situation that I'm talking about is the injustice, but the circumstances for now is I'm locked in this cell. So I got to figure out what I can do, use the tools that's available. Before coming in prison, I didn't have no real formal education. I got my GED while I was waiting on my murder trial. And, I just didn't know a lot of things. I was really just ignorant about a lot of stuff. But one thing I could do is communicate through hip hop. And, I got some pushback at the time. I was really heavy in my craft, like over the range, but I had some guys that was there like, man, hey, you putting together a rap, you need to put together a brief. You know what I mean? Hey, you use all them words, you can put your words together like that. Hey, you need to research the law and give a legal argument, And so, I started to study the law and understand how it works. I even took a law course to be a paralegal, and I learned how to read case laws, how to formulate legal arguments in state and federal court, in criminal situations as well as civil. Then I started to learn how to network. Some guys put me up onto a prison pen pal site at the time in Indiana, and I put my case up on there. I spent my last $100 to my name on that thing, right? I rewrote that mug about 5 times, but it was really a hit. This is like 2002, 3. And at this time, I transferred from disciplinary segregation to administrative segregation, and this is when all these letters start to hit. All these letters start to hit from different people that I was writing from around the world. It was real inspiring, right? To get these letters from people that I never met, from different countries, different walks of life. And out of that horrible moment, that was the silver lining in it, where I started to do the things that I could do while I was in solitary, while you deprived of everything, proper food, it's sensory deprivation, and there the lights are on 24/7. So at a certain point, you have to pivot yourself in your situation by accepting your circumstances. So I'm in solitary. I know that I don't have a lot of options but to write and to read and to educate myself about what I can do. And so I kept the fight up, messing with the public defender's office. And my case they didn't handle my case right in Indiana Public Defender's Office. They tried to get me to have just one issue out of all the issues I had. And I wasn't going for that. So I went pro se in 2006. So from 2006 to 2012, I was pro se. It was a lot of things that was happening in there. Even though I was networking, and I got to the point where my case was on the internet, and people was reaching out. When I reflect back, it make me think about a Frederick Douglass quote. He said, I'm just paraphrasing. In his narratives, he said, "A man without power can only be pitied for so long if he don't show no force." I was like, man. So I always showed force. At the end of the day, I had to get up off the floor and I had to show people my worth. Sometimes people don't recognize worth. They don't know what it looked like. So you get overlooked. You become a throwaway still. Even if that's so, you still have to keep on pushing. I liken it to any great athlete, right? Any great athlete, you persevere, man. You got to shoot the shot. You got to take the shot. You got to, make it happen. You got to be the badger in a situation going into a wasp nest trying to get honey. You're going to get stung, and that's part of it. So it was that type of mentality to it. And, the philosophy of reading these great thinkers, I didn't just read them to be thinking like, oh, I want to be like Aristotle, or I want to be like, Socrates or Aesop or, Sartre, Nietzsche or Elijah Muhammad. It wasn't that. I was reading that to try to understand my situation. And that's what made that stuff different. Because I'm reading it to find something applicable that I can apply to my situation. And sometimes I didn't, right? And it came on the back end. So, going through that whole solitary experience was really powerful for me. It really set the groundwork on me understanding that it is man that gives the world meaning. We all have choices. I even read it in the Bible. Deuteronomy 30:19. I'm just paraphrasing. It says, today you got a choice between life and death. And what I got for you, don't wait for nobody to ascend from heaven to tell you what it's like. Don't wait for nobody to come from overseas to tell you what it's like. What I got for you today is already on your lips and your heart. I was like, wow, man. If that wasn't existential, I don't know what is, right? Free will. He said, don't wait for nobody to come out the sky. And then I read Psalms 82. It said, God resides around the congregation of gods. He said, y'all are gods, but you would die as princes. I'm like, man, the Bible's saying this. And then, it's just so many things. And I started to be empowered by, these words from these ancient books, whether it was the I Ching, whether it was the Five Rings, whether it was Sun Tzu, or Machiavelli, or Lao Tzu. I really started to, really dwell on a lot of their lessons. And again, to make it applicable to my life and what I was doing. And it really helped. It helped out a lot, with my well-being when I was there. I wouldn't know the impact of this stuff until, years and years later. But that was the incubation I was in. We had study groups over the range amid the craziness that was on this lockup. And you always had to confront yourself. I was my biggest obstacle. Even though I was innocent, I chose not to go to school. I chose to do all these other things that wasn't beneficial to me or my family. I was able to look in the mirror and say that to myself, and I tell people all the time, you got to get past your 7 devils before you see God. Those 7 devils are in you. It ain't nobody with a red tail, with some pitchforks and some horns coming out their head. Satan is you in your lower self. And, being innocent, it can make you justify a lot of things. That's the devil. Man, I'm innocent. I don't got to do that. I don't got to read nothing. Man, I'm innocent. You should help me just because. It don't work like that. Everybody got to put their work in, homie. You hear me? Everybody. So, in those moments right there, I really was finding myself growing a lot. And then I came into a lot of conflict with my case. In 2009, a lawyer jumped on my case without my permission. I had everything set up. I even found an eyewitness who seen somebody else commit the crime. A statement that police had the whole time. They never brought him to trial. Come to find out, he was in a work release center, ironically down the street from where the crime happened at in Indianapolis, Indiana. So I found him though, but this lawyer jumped on my case, and the thing about it, you gotta, in Indiana courts, it's non-compliance. When you file a motion and they send you a non-compliance motion, that's because you got a lawyer on your case. You only can speak through your lawyer. So I'm like, what's going on? And this dude then jumped on my case like he's my lawyer. I'm like, man, so I went through a whole fiasco with that, and I had to withdraw without prejudice, meaning I can file in another time. So I went through the whole civil suit process and whatnot, and I came up short on that. And then I was stuck because I knew I ran out my federal time. But I was like, man, I still got to push on. I'm gonna go get this lawyer. I'm gonna find a lawyer. So I eventually got off lockup after nearly 10 years of being locked up in solitary. I got out in 2011, and I was shipped to population. It felt weird, going into population and just being around people for a while, but I adjusted, to my surroundings. And, everything about prison is abnormal. But I guess I felt normal, you know what I mean? After you left a place like that. And, I eventually got another lawyer. And, it didn't work out with this guy. This guy, he really didn't have my best interest. And I knew it, even though, I paid him $20,000. $20,000. Probably a little more on expenses. He didn't do nothing. So with this lawyer that I was telling you about, he really messed up. I had everything, even that eyewitness now. He was there, and we did a PC hearing and everything. But this guy, this lawyer, he acted like he couldn't find his eyewitness. He's like, he ain't gonna show up. And my sister happened to have a witness on call and called him. He was like, ain't nobody call me. I'm ready. This the PC. I was like, oh man, he wanted him. Right? So my man, he came and he testified on my behalf. My family was there, but a lot of people didn't know. I didn't know at the time until I got home that my lawyer tried to undermine this situation. right? Obviously, you got a witness who should have testified in the trial, who had already gave police a statement, and he's finna testify in court. And you say you can't find him, and my sister just called him, and he said nobody called him. Yeah, so my PC got denied. Now, I went through the process of appealing it and everything. This is in 17, and then the end of my appeal process ended in 18. And I was devastated, man. I was. I admit I was devastated, but I worked through it. We got to work. The work that I was doing at the time, I was doing a lot of good work on the inside. You know, I had put down some of my childish things, you know, trying to hustle and things like that. And as early as 2015, I seen a light of change that I needed to make, because I had done everything my way. And at that point, I felt like I needed to follow the path, you know, of the Creator, Yahweh, as I like to deal with the tradition of the ancient Israelites. They are the authors of the Bible. And from my studies in etymology, you know, the root meaning of words, I knew if I wanted to master the Bible, I needed to know how to translate it into Hebrew. And, you know, once I started doing that, I started seeing something different. In the Bible, I started seeing the key words, what things mean, and it really empowered me. Not some spookism, and God is gonna knock down the walls. No, it was a practice. It's a practice, right? So I had to practice it out. I had to, you know what I mean, be the message that you bring, you know. Stop being, you know, double-minded. I had one mind, even in prison. So if I was there to help them, I was there to help. And I helped, you know, educate guys in different programs. The Band of Brothers on the inside was a start. I was a mentor in that. Then, you know, I was able to mentor in the Hebrew Israelite community that was there. It was thriving. I was in charge of the praise team and the music, and we had a real nice selection of music. And I gave sermons. I done gave over hundreds of sermons, you know, for the brothers. And then I was able to do True Self, was another program I facilitated in. And one of the programs I was able to do that was really enlightening was The Streets Don't Love You Back. The Streets Don't Love You Back. Prevention and life skills course. I was helping the inmates, you know. I liked the smarter goals that was in there. I think it was specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timetable, smart goals. That was something that was really big about the course. And just about how pharmaceuticals, you know, kind of, you know, got a lot of people on drugs. A lot of people in the class, even prisoners, didn't realize that prescription drugs is drug use. You using drugs, like you're becoming addicted. And the prevention program really, you know, gave me a lot of insights about, you know, drug use, drug rehabilitation. And it made me rethink a lot of things. And it made me challenge the administration there that this program should be a curriculum in things that you do. You know, I made it a curriculum first in the True Self program. right? It was a curriculum in there that you needed to pass this course, to pass this whole program. And, that was really big. And, these are little lights. And I went on to do other things, do Toastmasters. I ended up becoming a president because you said you would. Is a promise club because I said I would. So if you say stuff, you need to stand on your word. You got to be accountable. And the best ability is availability. You need to be available for the people that you say that you love. If you're not, you know what I mean? Like, that's just what life is. And I tried to be available to them brothers. And it did. After 18, it became my distraction too. Because I'm trying to figure out, how do I get out of prison after 18? In 2018, at that point, I had been in prison for 20 years. I'm like, man, what do I do? I'm trying to figure it out. So from my research, I seen that the only way to hurdle this procedural default for untimely filing, see, according to the Anti-Death Penalty Terrorism Act of 98, put in place by Bill Clinton, that if you have a timeline, and it's funny, because if you file your case, your direct appeal, you file it, after your direct appeal get denied, your time start going. So if I was to file my PC a year after my direct appeal, see, I forfeited my time. I only got a year. But if I file my post-conviction relief or PCR 3 months, that means I got 9 months still on the table until after my PC is, if it's denied, I got a time period to file my appeal on that. And after that appeal, I got a timeline left. All this time is counting down. And I lost my time dealing with this lawyer that jumped on my case. And it seemed like, ironically, the next year they let me out, right? Right? So it's a lot of things, when you're trapped in the system. I mean, you really trapped. There's a lot of games that go on with the prisoner as well as the administration, with the courts, with judges, just with people, period. Because you are a new slave in America, right? Amendment, the 13th Amendment, right? Slavery has been abolished except for those who are convicted of crimes. And society use it against you, right? You read a book, stop telling me that prison stuff, right? You like, man, right? They come to find out you go to colleges and you know more than the professors, right? But when you in that suit, it don't matter. That's how people choose to see you. And I was experiencing a lot of that, at that time. After my, all my remedies was exhausted and I was trying to perfect this actual innocence doctorate, which will hurdle over the procedural default. So I needed some time to do it, to figure that out. Because I could file it any time. If I prove my case, I get into court and I win. So I was taking my time putting it together. But in the meantime, like I said, I was doing these programs, that light you was talking about. I still seen that light. And I was like, if I got the power to help somebody, I'm going to help them. I don't want nobody to turn them down the way I was turned down, right? So I was like, let me be that light. And honestly, I really fell into a desperate situation, man, because I'm like, man, I got to perfect this, right? And I leveled down, and when you level down, it's like it get more watered down. Now these guys in these lesser security facilities, they don't know nothing, and they don't want to know nothing. So now I'm by myself. trying to figure it out. You be needing some back and forth, with people that study the law. And I just didn't have that, so that slowed down my process again, because I don't got nobody I can talk to. Like, what did this argument look like to you? Like, So I said, you know what? I'm going to file a clemency, right? I'm going to file a clemency. So it's right after the pandemic, or during the pandemic in 2020. So I said, I came up with a bright idea. I was participating in this program, the Plus program, and it's purposeful living unit service. That's what it means, right? It's a cool program. It got a lot of great little classes, but I was really beyond it. I was just doing it for a time cut. I facilitated in it. I brought some the Streets Don't Love You back to the fold, hoping that we can get a curriculum in their particular program. But a lot of people, took the course there, but it didn't become a curriculum there. But it, the program still spread it though. So I filed this clemency. Nobody get clemency in Indiana. So I got a bone to pick. I said, look, if I file this clemency and I make some noise, and after I graduate this program, I have another time cut. What I do afterwards, probably in February, March of 2021, I'm gonna file a sentence modification. It'll work out just right. They gonna know I was filing my clemency. I finished this program. I'm here, and I got people that surround me, and they give me a sentence modification. At that time, I'm like 8 years conduct free. You know what I mean? You just got to walk the right way. And it's no wrong time to do the right thing, right? And anybody, my friend, who serve justice, truth, freedom, love, they friend of mine, So I started living like that. And I filed this clemency. So in the course of me filing this clemency, I reached out to my people in the world, and I wrote a blog giving people instructions on how to send me letters, right? Hey, the irony of it is I put out, like, when I sent it out to get published on my Facebook page, I sent out like 50 phone numbers of people who I know support me, that would at least write a letter. And the irony of it is, I received the letters, and I got 21 letters, and I only knew 4 people. Rest of them were strangers. My brother, my 2 sisters, and my comrade Fury Young. They were the only ones I knew. And it was a letter in there from a woman named Shannon Coleman. Now, she was from Philadelphia. Now, what was different about this, she was a woman of color. She was a basketball mom, right? Right? That makes sense, right? A basketball mom, right? She was elderly. And in her letter, she wrote, to the clemency board, that they should free me, that, it's obvious that I'm innocent. And that she know from looking at my case, because she helped a guy named Anthony Wright to freedom, right, in Philadelphia a year before. What was crazy about it was Shannon Coleman helped out a guy who was accused of killing and raping her great aunt, right? Louise Talley, her great aunt. But Shannon seen something in the case and it wasn't right. And DNA would prove that Mr. Wright didn't do that case, and the police set him up, right? He did all that time, he got out. So I was like, wow, man, that's dope. So I wrote her back. I said, hey, I appreciate what you did. If you can do anything else, let me know. She wrote me back and told me, well, my daughter worked in with the prosecution office as an intern in there, and that's what they do. They get people out. She said, do y'all got a conviction integrity unit? I said, what's that? He said, y'all don't got that? Right? This is June of 21. Right? No, I'm tripping. This is June of 20. Right? Because I got these letters. I eventually filed my clemency in October of 2020. So we still talking in between. By the time we get to the end of 2020, she said, you know what? I was messing with the internet. And they got a conviction integrity unit. As well as Christina Bunch in Exonerated, Indiana, helped her out too. Once, that CIU was open in Indianapolis, the first one. So she got exonerated by Northwestern University, the wrongful conviction clinic, right? In Northern Illinois. But, she put a word in, right? And, I had the questionnaire in my hand, April of 21. I reluctantly fill it out. You got to think, I wrote every innocent project. Just a little side note. Conviction. Something you can hear in somebody's voice. They can fool you for a little while. But real conviction, it comes from going through it. When you do all the work, you get something out of it. All sincere effort is rewarded. I wrote every innocent project. I wrote every state. Wrote Dateline. I wrote 48 Hours. I wrote the Oprah. You know what I mean? Hey, anybody, I wrote everybody, right? But I didn't get no answers. So I wrote and I sent out a lot of questionnaires to these innocent projects, and they just never done that. So by the time I got to them and they conviction integrity unit, right? And I'm writing in it. And it's just like, it's the same old rodeo. That's what I'm looking at. So one thing I did different, at the end, they said, you got any last thoughts you want to say? And this is what I wrote. I said, I may have been a drug dealer, a deadbeat father, even a worthless son of a bitch, but I'm not a murderer. And I just sent it off. And I told Shannon about it. I was like, I don't really trust they gonna do anything. Yeah, right, you know what I mean? She said, you got to have faith in them, come on, Leon, they work here. And lo and behold, in May, actually in July, they picked up my case, right? Now, I did put a blitz down. I had my queen daughter, Kobe Blewett, my queen sis, Valerie Buford. They were definitely, helping me organize. And I was able to put together an event in Indianapolis called Mass Release for clemency prisoners. So I didn't do it only for myself. I opened up a door for other prisoners. And I had a lot of people filing their clemencies to hold the state of Indiana accountable for playing with that avenue. So they put pressure, on the CIU, publicly, and people were calling on my behalf. So I get the letter from Kelly Bowder. She's the co-director of the Conviction Integrity Unit. She was like, you got to stop all your people calling up here. You got to stop, man, all this stuff online, you know. This is the investigation going on. We got to, you know, protect this investigation, you know, woo, woo, woo. So I was like, hey, you know, I'm sorry. We're going to hurry up and stop that. I just needed to be sure that you had me, right? And, you know, I stopped it. So and she told me about Laura Baseline. Right, she's a native of Philadelphia, but she was working in California. Again, I'm like, man, like, you know what I mean? I mean, what's she gonna do for me? You know what I mean? But she took my case in August. She said, Leon, she wrote me the letter. Leon, I read your transcripts. I read, it was very wrong what they did to you. You're innocent. You shouldn't be in there. We're going to represent your case pro bono. Right? I was like, man. I'm like, I don't got no truth. Bet. Hey. They put in work on the case. You know, they came down, boots on the ground, and in Indianapolis, they went through the area, touching all the witnesses, using their students too. So my case was in mock situations, and it was in the hands of students at San Francisco School of Law, the University of San Francisco School of Law, and the Racial Justice Clinic. They were on it, and they put pressure, you know, even on the Conviction Integrity Unit, so much so that they started to work together, right? And that was really big to see, you know, these people come together for justice. I was able to communicate with them at least twice a month via Zoom. And, you know, they were spot on. I remember one time, Laura Baseline and her assistant, Charlie Nelson Keever, they was like, Leon, you don't got to convince us of your innocence. Because I was so used to having to prove myself, right? I got prison clothes on, you know what I mean? You do kind of get this built-in insecurity or inferiority for being relegated for so long. You always got to prove what you know 2 plus 2 is 4, man. 2 plus 2 is 4. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 4. 3 plus 1 is 4. 0. You going out your way to prove something that's obvious. And that's what they told me. And I was like, man, they said, we believe you. And I was like, for real? Like, yeah. And it really empowered me, man. It really, really empowered me, you know, to have people that really believe. Now, the belief is different. I got a lot of people that love me. But I say this, though. Everybody got a lot of people that love them. But you got fewer people that love you and give a fuck about what you're going through. When you give a fuck about what somebody going through, you empathize with them. You do. You consider that. You be like, damn, what's that like? Shit. Let me figure some shit out. They did that for me. And that was the first time I ever got that out of a lawyer. I got that out of my people, some of my family members. But the thing was, people didn't have time. They didn't have the knowledge. They didn't have the relationships to certain people to do certain things. But they did. So when they told me, they on it. Now, I asked Kelly Bowder, right, about this later. Wait, before I get to that, let me say this. So when they researching my case, they find my file. In my file is notes from another detective, right? A drug detective. And in his notes, he writes to Detective Alan Jones, the lead detective on this case. He said, Detective Alan Jones, my confidential informant said that they seen such and such commit this crime and they was with him and they were bragging on it, right? Another suspect, right? And it was the same suspect that Dakari Fulton, that eyewitness I was telling you about, had identified and known. The same suspect that Crime Stoppers had identified and known, and where it said that this particular person's girlfriend reported the gun stolen. Dakari said he seen this dude with a 380. The victim was killed with a 380, right? And the Crime Stopper report, it said that dude girlfriend reported the gun stolen because she feared she was going to get in trouble. So I got the police report like years later. Guess what type of gun it was? A 380, right? And now you got the situation that a confidential informant, right? You want to believe everything else, you know what I mean? Hey, jailhouse snitches, you know what I mean? You want to believe everything else? Now you don't want to believe your confidential informant? But the detective, man, he buried that, right? So with their research, they went and they interviewed Detective Alan Jones, and Detective Alan Jones admitted it. He confessed. And I was like, wow. And then, you know, by this time, it's 2002. So around August, the talks was out, man. Boy, they finna let you go, man. Hey, they finna let you go. You can be gone as early as next week, right? We got it, right? The prosecutions gave a declarations. Leon did not do this. This case got no integrity. The prosecution office is not responsible or did not know about the detective holding back this information. It was not in discovery. You see what I'm saying? And I was like, wow, you know what I mean? And, you know, long story short, the official filing in Indiana courts was December 12th, right, of 2022. So they was like, you coming home Christmas. So my lawyers got a little bit, man, they got a little bit out of whack. My sisters and them, cause they looking at it different. This is one reason I think I had a conversation earlier where I was talking about I didn't really realize how my situation affect y'all. Cause once you in the picture, when you on the inside, you can't see it. You got to get out the picture to see the picture. If you in it, you can't see it. You know, so, and you know, I'm growing to understand that now. And they was going through they even cried. I was like, man, it's like people crying for me. Like, I had some white people crying for me, right? I did. I ain't never seen a white person cry for me. They for real, right? They was crying. I was like, wow, like, this must be real, right? It's going down. But they was getting impatient. I just told them to be patient because I realized the courts got 90 days to respond to, you know, anything you file. And this don't include weekends or holidays. So I could have been sitting there as late as May, right? So we going through everything and we sitting, we waiting, and it was March 9th. March 9th, I got the word. They called me into the office and said, you got immediate release. That was huge, you know what I mean? That was huge. And I didn't really react. At the time, I didn't react. I didn't tout or nothing. I was like, woo. Truth never dies, you know. And the counselors and stuff, man, they was just looking like, man, like this dude walking out of here, right? So I just went and packed my stuff up. You know, I hit my people. They was like, yeah, it's official. I heard last night. I was like, I'm just hearing today. So really the order went in March 8th. And it was really major. So I packed all my stuff up. I said my goodbyes to my comrades, kept the numbers I was gonna reach out to, you know, stuff like that. And you know, everybody was like, man, they was shocked. You know, I walked out and I went to medical. We had to go to medical because I got to do this blitz thing because of, you know, you got to do all this re-entry paperwork. I'm just marking stuff down to leave out. And you know, like on my way out, I'm pushing my cart. They gave me like a grocery cart to push out. I just had like a box, and it just went like that. I went through the corridors. They was opening up doors for me. I'm like, man, I ain't never seen this part of the prison, right? They opening up stuff, and before you know it, I'm right there at the front. They like, let me see your prison ID. Gave them my prison ID. They gave me a different ID for when I go out. And I said right there, I seen my sister there. I'm like, hey, what's up? And she had my clothes there that I planned to wear out. So I wore a white dashiki, a long sleeve dashiki with white pants with some white kohans. And I had my kufi on, and I had my prayer shawl on. And you know, I had my I didn't put my beads on at the time. I didn't see them, but that's what I had. And I had these glasses. He gave me these glasses, and I just walked out the door, man, so happy, you know. And I heard, you know, people chanting, you know, truth never dies, truth never dies. And I, you know, the first thing I did, you know, I saluted, you know, God, you know, the Most High, Yahweh. And, you know, the reason why I wore the prayer shawl is because I did a lot of ministering, you know, on the inside. You know, I gave a lot of speeches with doing that and just, you know, really, you know, rocking out as a traditional Israelite. And, you know, that's what we wore up there when we delivering Torah. So I just didn't put it on for show. I was practicing something, and that practice came to light. So that's the light you seen, man. In the end, I never really was without hope, right? Because it was something. Whether it was my brother coming through, or my sister, Rob or Lucinda, or maybe a Steve Willard in the UK, or maybe, you know, a sister in DC that decided to put some flyers out for me, or maybe an independent publisher published, you know, my article, or a pamphlet. When I look back, I never was without hope. Them tears of joy. It's good to let them out, right? But I never was without hope. And now that I'm out, see these tears? They tsunamis. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna change the world. I'm gonna change the world. With my voice, with my art, with my vision. Because I realized, you know, being on the inside like that, like, I was really blessed. Like, for real, man. Like, you know, I get out, you know, it's nothing for me to shed these tears, especially in front of loved ones. Y'all out there too. I love y'all too. But the streets definitely don't love you back. And that's true. So, like I started this off, remember those in prison as if you were a fellow inmate. Remember where your mind used to be. Don't talk about them. Remember when you was lost. You know how they lost. Lead them the right way. Remember those in prison. Go get them. Be the key. Open up the door. And if you can't help them, let them go. Let the dead bury the dead. Ain't nothing you can do but try.